Hello and welcome to the stream. No intro on this one, we're going to get right on into it. Just got the thumbnail there, 3, 2, 1. And just to prove the point, no music either, let's get the game sounds in. And welcome to the Airbus A340, where we're going to take a look at this real interesting approach and fly it manually. So for those not yet familiar with what we're talking about, let's have a little look. Now we're getting awfully close to our destination. You can see somewhere around 25-30 miles to go, and so I'm just going to put a hold on here real quick. Let's see if I can figure out how to do it from our hold. Right hands. Computed. Temp that in. Go. And there we go. We've got the hold. Fantastic. Nice and easy to do. Alright, so we're in the Airbus A340, but you can do this in any plane. Doesn't have to be an Airbus. You can pick one of the Boeings or anything else, but I would suggest something where you've got an ND display, at least just for now. Of course you can if you want. Do it old school and not even have an ND display, something like the fantastic 74-2 that you know I rave about on this channel because I like it. Right, let's drop the speed back a tad as well. Taking a look then at our destination, we're coming in Echo Golf Papa Charlie, which is Wick in northern UK. It's on the northern coast of Scotland. And we take a look at the runway here. It's about 6,000 feet long, not very long for an A340. We're not going to worry about that. I'm going to slam the brakes on. It's not what we're concerned about. What I'm interested in, if we take a look here, is the approach. Now you can see where our aircraft is here. We're currently on this right hand hold. We were originally, before we started the hold, on the November 560 airway, which you can see marked on the approach here. Now if you want to know where that airway is, if you come over to your the map view, and I'm just going to use Navigraph High, you'll notice it's not there. It's not depicted, and that's because this is actually a low airway. So if you come down onto the lower charts, now you can see the November 560. So we've been coming along from down here, and we've got this fix here, this one here, chin, and then that leads not through Python. We see it's quite close, but that leads all the way on to Wick, which is, in this case, this particular NDB. It's not actually the VOR it goes through. It goes through the NDB Wick, which we can see there is 344. Now, the NDB is a non-directional beacon. That is a beacon on the ground that links up with aircraft ADF, or the automatic direction finder. So those two pieces of equipment are what talk to each other. The NDB is the beacon on the ground. The ADF is the direction finder that's on the plane. In other words, if we dial in this frequency 344, because it's an Airbus, we can just put in the code WCK for Wick. It will tune that beacon in, and then it should give us an arrow pointing towards, providing that we're in range. We'll have a little look at that now. So we'll come over to the NDB page there. If I just center up the display, because it's currently behind us, push the range out a little bit, you can see it says currently overlapped with the NDB as the VOR beacon there as well. They're on top of one another. Never mind, let's see if we can tune it in. So I'm going to come over to my radio nav page, and if you look here, it auto-tunes the VOR, which is already, you know, that's to be expected. It's automatic. Wick can, of course, manually detune it. And then down here, we've got the ADFs. Typically, Airbus don't auto-tune the ADFs, at least not in the tow list. So we'll put that in. So WCK, and we should see the frequency auto-tune. Let's see if that works. So we'll put in WCK, and there you see it's auto-tuned 344, which is what we saw on the destructions. Yeah, that word will do. I'll put it on your side as well, because there are no other beacons that we're going to use. And then now if I turn both of these off just a moment and then switch ADF on my side, We can see there we've got this green needle ADF pointing directly towards Wick, which makes sense. Look, the needle is pointing, and there we can see the overlay of the airport on the ND. All right. Let's break down our approach chart then. So if we take a look, as we've established, we're going to be coming in on the November 560 airway. MSA for the area, if we take a look on the top right of the chart, is 3,400 feet, and that's from the quadrant actually that we're coming from. We're actually coming from the southwest here. So as long as we're within 25 miles, remember, these MSA height charts always apply for 25 miles unless they explicitly state otherwise. And so this circle here is going to be our minimum safe altitude for 25 miles, centered upon, in this case, the Wick VOR. We're going to be using the VOR again manually because we're going to be building this up. So I'm just going to tune. I'm not going to tune them both because they're both set to the VOR anyway. So I'll just set my side up, and we see there the arrow there pointing directly towards the VOR. To make sure, for whatever reason, Airbus doesn't manually detune the VOR, I'm actually going to manually put in the code. So in this case, Wick Whiskey India Kilo, and that's going to prevent any sort of automatic untuning. I can't see why it would, but just in case. I'm going to do it on your side as well, and the reason is I may want to use these course boxes. They're currently blank. I may want to use them. I'm going to start descending now down to 4,000 feet. I'll make sure we're below 250, which we are. Let's get 4,000 in. And I'm going to make it a nice manual descent, 1,000 feet a minute, something like that. I'm going to pull that out, just start the descent. Use VS, use level change, use open descent, use whatever you want. I just want to drop out so we're not having to fight to lose energy. That's not what I'm interested in on this one. So let's have a look. We'll work through this chart. ATIS, we've got 13.60. Now, the TOLIS A340 has recently had all its data link stuff worked. I have just tested it just before going live. It does seem to work. So I'll just demonstrate it. So in here, you'd go into ATC menu if you're on VATSIM. We're not, but I do want to grab the weather. So we're going to come into the airline operators menu here. And if we come over to the WEX ATIS here, you see I've just made a super short flight from EGPE, that's Inverness, to destination EGPC, that's Wick. I've also got the alternate in there. By the way, this just pulls in from your flight plan, and your flight plan's on SimBrief. So just put something in on SimBrief just so this can load in. Of course you don't have to, you could just manually fly here and look up the ATIS some other way. I find the ATIS itself doesn't work, however the METAR does, and so as long as you've got the airport in one of these boxes that you're interested in, I'm going to hit METAR once. Also the forecast button works as well, but we want to know what it is now. So hit METAR, we see these stars flicker for a bit. Once they start flickering, that means it's done. We can come over to the return, over to the received messages page. See, I've actually got 3 pages full of stuff while I've been messing around with this. And we're looking here for our destination. Well, remind ourselves it's EGPC, because here we're going to get the departure and the destination and the alternate all in. So here we see it on line 2. We've got a new message, EGPC METAR. And there we can see the date, the 28th at 14:33. So I'm going to grab that. That should be now. Where are we with the time? That's time since takeoff. There we go, 14:34 now. So 14:33, that makes sense. Here we see variable winds at 1 knot, so we can leave the winds blank. Visibility 9,900, in other words, 10k or better. Broken clouds at 2,100. Temperature 4, dew point 3, and importantly, the pressure QNH 0987. So I'm going to manually tune that now. I realize we're still slightly above the flight level change for the UK. It's the same as departure, 987. And let's fill in the autopilot's performance numbers. So we'll come over to the descent approach. So QNH 987. Temperatures were 3. And the winds were variable at 1 knot. I'm just going to put 0 at 0. Transition flight level 5000. I'll leave that blank. The only other one I want to put in, see here we've got the MDA or the decision height. Look through here. The flying category Delta, which is this one here. And if we look here, we're not going to do a circle to land because we basically got a circle to land prescribed on here. Well, we will take a look at that momentarily. Just build this up nicely. Minimums here we see it. So with DME or without DME. Well, we have DME, so we're going to be here 480 on the baro or 366 on the radar. I'm going to go with the barometric 480, which is going to be on the MDA side. So put 480 in. Some people like to add 50 feet on, or airlines. I don't see the point. Why force yourself extra restrictions when everything is already complying legally? I don't know. Alright, so that's in flight plan. Now we could simply load this procedure up, which is known as the VOR DME 13 at Wick, into the approach page. And for those unfamiliar to do with that, as long as we've got the destination EGPC, we click on that, we click on the arrival. There's the VOR 13, that's the one that we want. So we could click on that. There is no start. We're coming in through Chin. If you let's have a look. If you recall from our maps page, there is Chin. So if I click on that and just temp that in a sec, come over to the plan page. You can see there that yellow dotted line, Chin being back here. Of course, we would go direct to this next waypoint here. We've got everything built in there. It's got all the different restrictions put in, the heights, the speeds, and so on. If I zoom in a little more, see, it's quite a complex procedure, but point is this system is going to take care of it all for us, and as far as we're concerned, it's going to fly it exactly like any other approach. It'll do it exactly as far as a pilot's concerned. There is no difference between this and an RNAV approach. The only difference maybe is that you may not be able to press the approach button, but whether you're LNAV, VNAV, or managed nav mode and managed descent all the way down or not, either way, this is automatically going to drop you out right in front of the runway, and then you just disconnect 30-40 seconds from touchdown and do it yourself. Now, why not do that? Well, I guess in real world, most pilots are going to do that. Personally, I think it's boring. I think all this automation, more and more automation, is taken away from flying. Now, don't get me wrong, using the autopilot to fly in a straight line when it's hour after hour, I completely agree with that, but to just automate everything, it's not just that, oh, in my day you really had to fly a plane kind of thing. I'm not on about like that. I'm just on about the boredom factor. Like if you've got a computer that, you know, 10, 15 seconds after takeoff, you hit that autopilot button and it's doing it all the way until like 30, 40 seconds before touchdown at the other end, I would just find that boring. Would I be saying that if I'd been flying for 20, 30 years? I don't know. But I just think that sounds boring. However, we're going to manually create this. Now, by manually creating it, what I mean is we're not going to manually edit all these points into the FMC. We're just going to fly it using the autopilot without entering it in. So again, I cleared it out in the flight plan. Let's come back to the flight plan. Now I've deleted it out. We're just going to fly it ourselves. So we're going to exit the hold at this point and go direct. And so I'm going to hit onto the immediate exit. Zoom in, and then you can see we're exiting the hold at this point. You've got to be real careful how you say that. And we'll pick up the pace. So let's have a little look then. So we'll be coming in here direct towards Wick. we're going to disconnect and we're going to have a look here. So here we see we've got category A and B. They're going to be closer to the DME. They're going to be doing a 5 DME arc. DME it stands for distance measuring equipment, but it's just a fancy way of saying you're 5 miles away. And if you just see a big capital D, that means the same thing. They've just run out of space to put it. So here, for example, D7 is you're 7 miles away. So category C and D, of course, that's your 737s, your A320s and bigger. We're going to be 7 miles away. So we'll be coming in on this radial. Now the radial, you can see here, real convenient, is 231 degrees. And the letter I, if you're good at your alphabet, you know how many letters away is I from A being 1 mile, B 2, C 3, and so on. And with that, you're actually going to get a distance here, which is probably going to be about 9 or 10 miles. I forget is I without counting it out. I'm not going to embarrass myself. But point is, 231 degrees from Wick, which is this beacon here. 9 or 10 letters away from the alphabet is 9 or 10 miles, and that's this point here. We've got then that right hand turn, and the chart already puts into the fact that, you know, you can't turn instantaneously. You're going to need a mile or two to turn, and that's why we've got this additional bit of distance here. Now then we're going to follow this arc round. The only way we can follow this manually without programming it in is by tuning up this beacon here. So the first course, I think 231, of course, that's the radial. To get the reciprocal, we need to knock 180 degrees off that. That's going to give us 51 degrees. And we're now inbound. We're on that heading 51. We're now going direct towards Wick up there. Let's push the range out a little bit so we can see it. And here, EGPC, I'm going to put it in. So, radio, Wick, course 051. Okay. And if we even look on, I think let's have a look on the VOR page. Yeah, there we see it. And you see these arrows, it's not perfectly aligned. That's because we're ever so slightly to the left. I'm going to pull the head in and I'm just going to move right a couple of degrees. You could also fly on the track mode using the bird, and then that's going to compensate for the wind. You see we've got about a 9 knot crosswind from the right, but I'm just going to stick into heading mode for now. See, we're about 18 miles away from Wick, which is the beacon, and we need to start this turn. I'm gonna do it. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. It's 9 miles. Okay, so on the 9 mile, we start this turn. It's just a case of manually spinning the heading wheel around. And to begin with, I'm going to put 90 degrees onto the turn, and then after that, I'm just going to keep my eye on the DME. And if it's more than 7 miles, I'm going to turn more to the left, i.e. closer to the beacon. If we get closer than 7 miles, I'm going to turn slightly more to the right to get further away. Now, once we've swung around this arc, you see at 135, we need to start our turn direct towards the beacon. Now, once we're direct towards the beacon, we've then got to continue through over the top of the beacon until D8, which means distance 8 miles away from Wick. And at that point, we start a right-hand turn all the way round until we're on 134 degrees inbound. Once again, direct towards the VOR beacon. And that is then going to bring us down in onto the final approach. Now, that is all the lateral information. We do got some height stuff here as well, so you can see until we cross over the VOR, we need to be at the minimum height. Let's have a look. Does it say where? It just says 1,800 feet. At this point here is 2,600. So I'm just going to go with 2,600. There's no need to race down simply because once we move away from the VOR, we can't descend below 1800 until we're 8 miles away anyway. In other words, until we're here and we start this turn back round, we're not allowed to descend below 1800. All right, we're getting close. You can see there we've corrected for that more than somewhat, so let's come left here. We could also fly the VOR log here, which is, you know, like your VOR in the Boeings. I don't see the point. We're just going to carry on like this. Now, there we are. We're 9 miles away, so I've got to put 90 degrees on now. Almost missed that. I'm also going to decelerate a bit now. So something like that, about 90 degrees. We can see there the heading is about 90 degrees off, and we'll see how it goes. Now 7.6, 0.5, 0.4 might end up getting a bit close. Kind of creeped up on me, if I'm honest there. Just checking any speed restrictions. They're not immediately jumping out at me, but I'm sure there was some. All right, let's focus on the turn. So now we can see the beacon is pointed over to our left-hand side, slightly behind us now. Again, ignore this blue line because that's what our course needle is tuned into. You see there we're 7 miles away exactly. Now 7.1, and again, that's because it's drifting behind us, 7.2. And so we need to turn left. I'm also going to put flaps 1. .6, so we're starting to drift further and further away. So we really need to get on top of this. So let's put another few degrees in. And as soon as this needle here moves in front of this 3.9 line, which is right now, I can see we're ahead. That means we're now going to start and get closer. So 7.8 nautical miles, that's going to slowly get closer, providing this arrow stays in front. And there we go, 7.7. So we can see that working quite nicely. Let's put another 10 degrees on or so. Now we got to keep this turn going until I am going to get rid of this triangle, because again I find it cheating. We've got this radial here of 135, and then that signifies the start of the turn. And then we've got to go inbound 299 degrees. And so I'm going to put both of those on. So we've got 135. Whoops. 135. That's going to remind me to start the turn. And then I've got to track in 299. So I'm going to put that in on your side. And so my side reminds me when to turn. Your side reminds me what heading I need to turn to. You see we're 7.4 DME and we're right on the 3.9 line. So I'm going to bring that across. Usually, when you're doing a DME out, you'd do 15 degrees at a time, as and when. Now, my side being tuned on the course 135, this needle is going to move down, and as it passes right through the middle, that's going to say we're on the 135 radial from Wick. Again, the radial's always from, so from here to here is 135 degrees. That is the radial. We want the reciprocal of that, or the course, to go inbound. And let's do another 15 degrees or so. See, we're 7.4, so we're slightly further away by about half a mile now. 7.5. You see there that arrow just creeping behind us. Now we see that course line coming through. Let's reduce speed a little bit more as well. I'm going to go flaps 2. And as soon as that drops through the middle, which is 3, 2, 1, now we're going to start that left-hand turn. What heading to? Well, it's this one here, published here, 299 degrees. Now, because we started our turn, we don't need that piece of information of when to start the turn. That's already passed. So I'm going to put 299 on my side as well. And now I need to line up with this arrow here to fly in line. And you can see that published procedure is going to bring us in quite nicely. I'm going to reduce the speed a bit further, 190. And that's looking that's going to bring us out almost perfect. I like that. Now let's start descending. And again, we can go down to 1,800 feet at this point. So let's get 2,000 and then change this to the hundreds. 1.8. I'm just going to manually bring myself down nice and slow, about 1,000 feet a minute. Pull that out. And now we need to fly directly in line. Again, we could do the VOR hold, but we're so close to the beacon, I don't want to. Now, if we look at this, we're ever so slightly drifting to the right. I'm not going to make such a wild correction as before. I'm just going to put 1 degree correction in there on the heading. See, we've got like a 3-4 knot tailwind. And here's the runway itself. The 6,000 footer, of course, we're coming in on the other side. So you can see we're not in line with the runway, we're offset. And that makes sense because we're going to do a teardrop entry turn once we're over the other side, which we can see here. So we're currently coming over here. We're going to do this teardrop turn here. Again, category D, it wants us after the VOR on a heading of 292 degrees. And well, I say heading, it's a track. It really wants us on. You know what? Let's put us into track mode. Keep an eye out here. We haven't yet gone past it. We know that because the distance is still counting down. I'm just going to reduce the descent rate a tad. 1.6, 1.5, so we're still getting closer. 1.4. See, we're ever so slightly drifting to the right as well. Do you know, because we're drifting to the right, I'm going to put this turn in now. 292. Again, if you was in a Cessna or something like, you'd want the 303 because you'd be category A or B. So let's go 292, 06, 05, 04. Now you see the arrow disappears. Why has it disappeared? We're inside the cone of confusion. It doesn't accurately know where we are in relation to the beacon because we're right over the top of it. And now the arrow reappears. We've come outside of the cone of confusion. All right, 292 outbound. I'm going to put that in on. I'm going to put it in on your side. 292. Okay. And I'm going to put the VOR on your side as well. Turn my one off. And now I need to line this arrow up to be precisely on where the procedure is. So you can see I'm drifting a little bit, and that's probably because I turned slightly early. So let's put 5 degrees on or so. See if we can't get right in line. And remember, we got to continue this until we're 8 DME here. We're currently 3 DME. We've got some blues to do's here, which includes putting the gear down. We've got the cabin to check. I'm going to go ahead and sort the cabin out now. We've got spoilers to arm. Let's do that. Fold the armrest out the way. And landing gear and flaps to go. I'm going to ignore the company message. Auto brake. Again, it's a short runway and we're quite heavy. So I'm going to go auto brake 4, which is pretty much maxed out. Still got like a degree and a bit, almost 2. These dots signify 2.5 if I remember correctly each. Let's put a couple more degrees on to the right. Certainly catching up with the discrepancy. Now when we turn around, you see we want to be in line with the VOR on a heading of 134, or a tracker 134, which is, I was going to say 321, but of course that's when we start the turn on this other one. So 134. So I'm going to go ahead, preload that on my side, 134. And then once I start this turn, which we see is well past due now. No, it's not well past due. Let's get rid of that. Put the VOR back on my side. The 7.7, 7.8, at 8 miles we start the turn, so now it's due. Start right-hander. So when I complete this teardrop, ideally I want this arrow to be completely the center line. Now making sure I don't turn this too far around and cause the autopilot to suddenly start steering the other way. I'm not sure what kind of limit it has, or if it's as soon as it's past halfway. Usually, the autopilot should steer the aircraft whichever way you steer the heading. So you could, in theory, steer the heading 360 degrees to the right. And of course, by the time you've finished doing that, the autopilot may have already steered 10, 20 degrees to the right. but it should keep going. Now we can see here this arrow here coming across quite quick. Let's slow down a bit. And I'm just going to manually tweak the heading track here. Now what does it say with regards to our descent? Well, coming down here, once we're 5.4 DME, we start the 3-degree down. And so that's what we're going to do. That's actually rolled us out real nice. Track, I want to be on, what was it? Was it 134? It was. So let's put 134 on the track. So we're maintaining 1,800 feet. And that takes place until we're 5.4. We also see it marked here helpfully to remind us. And that's this one here. Now look at this, we're ever so slightly to the right, so I'm just going to put a couple of degrees or so. Correct that. It's probably did a degree or two too much there, but it doesn't matter. Keep an eye on the distance here. It does take half a mile to get going, so I think at 5.9 I'm going to pull it. I'm going to wind that out the way, and I'm just going to pull that now. Let's slow down even more. Let's dump the gear and go flaps 3. Put a couple of degrees onto the right. I think we've corrected for that slight discrepancy. Gears going down. We're on a 3-degree down, and our missed approach is up to 2,000, at least initially. And then what? Anything else? And then left back to the VOR and hold or as directed. Okay, so 2,000 is in. And because we've pulled the flight path angle and we're below the altitude, it's going to carry on descending even though we're below 2,000. We're bang on line with the VOR. I'm going to go flaps full now. We're below 1,000 feet. Rad out. And there we can see runway slightly offset, and we've got 2 white, 2 red, and so everything there is looking real nice. So at this point, you want to be disconnecting and going manual. Of course, there is no auto land on a VOR. Whether we'd hooked that all up to the autopilot and the MCDU or done it manually, either way, it's going to be the same. Disconnect here, and you know what to do from here on in.
100 above. 400.
It looked like that VOR approach was 2 or 3 degrees offset, and I'm sure if we were to look here somewhere, it would probably say so. There we look. Final approach track is 5 degrees offset, and so it wasn't that there was any mistake with the alignment. That's exactly how it's prescribed.
200.
Again, I do like the precision on the X-plane. That's what
100.
what we all like about it. Those of us that appreciate that sort of
40,
thing.
30, 20, retard, 10, 5.
And there's the touchdown reversers. It's a short runway. Reversers green. Let's give it some. $60 knots. Let's go idle. 40. Let's go manual braking. I'm going to keep reversers in on idle. And look at that. Not too much runway to spare. We could have gone max. I could have stood on the pedals if it was looking more shabby. Let's get rid of the spoilers. Get rid of the flaps. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Wick in Scotland. I hope you appreciated the approach procedure there. It is an interesting one to do. Again, don't just load it up and get it to do it automatically. That's boring. We know you can do that in your sleep. All the modern aircraft can do it. It's boring. I'm trying to keep a bit of something alive. And by the way, real time, real weather, looking pretty good. Is that 2 suns? Is it 3 suns? I don't know. You decide. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye. By the way, my cold's getting better. Have you noticed?